Ready to rip?
Yep.
All right. We're welcoming Mr. Jerry Jeff Walker, a man who has influenced Americana, country, tropical, and folk music.
I would like to say that anything you say can be used against you. Be advised of that.
He's a cornerstone of American music, so we welcome Mr. Jerry Jeff Walker.
Hey.
So tell me, Mr. Walker, a little bit about how you got started in music.
Oh, crap. All the way back there? Why don't you read my autobiography? Called Gypsy
What was the name
Songman.
of it? Gypsy Songman, yeah.
In fact, the guy last night that we all came down here together with me, Buffett, and Tom Corcoran. He said he just read it. Anyway, so it tells you, I just basically just hitchhiked out of a small town upstate New York and went to see America. Fortunately, the folk boom was on. There were coffee houses on campuses everywhere, and you could go to any big city and ask where the campus was, and you'd probably find a coffee house with a billboard saying, riders needing to go to California, riders wanting to go to New Orleans, pay gas, jump in and go. So anyway, it was a good time to be roaming the country. You could still hitchhike, you could still see the country, and that's what I wanted to do. And as along the way, I picked up songs that I thought were kind of unique and whatever, and then I started writing a few of my own.
What kind of stuff did you listen to when you were starting out, becoming interested?
Well, I learned to play guitar listening to Jimmy Rogers records because the old blues yodeler, he had a real distinct style. He did a lot of stuff by himself, and he had a picking style that was pretty unique, and I kind of copied that. I knew he was the father of country music. Then I listened to some Woody Guthrie, and then I was influenced by Ramblin' Jack Elliott, as all of us were. And then when we crossed into contemporary stuff, I was listening to Fred Neil, his dad. This is Justin Neil. And then I listened to, Buffett did too, and then we listened to Dylan, of course. The rest is history.
And I noticed that just in research that you appreciate this young guy, Todd Snyder, that we play sometimes on our show.
My son, my wild son. Yeah. He's kind of in the tradition that we were in, of singer-songwriters, storytellers, a little off the wall, a little cosmic. We used to say we played country music, we just weren't sure what country it was. Because we kind of, went everywhere we wanted to. And now it is. I mean, fields overlapping.
And speaking of other countries, you spend quite a bit of time in Belize. Mm-hmm. And you have was Casa Gonzo there?
Yeah.
So tell me about how you first decided to go to Belize.
I'd been here. Mm-hmm. We're in Key West now, so in case these people don't know what we're talking. And we were just commenting on the fact how it's gone from a sleepy little fishing village with shrimp boats and I said about 3 bars that we shot pool in with bad jukeboxes to basically a big featured shop for the cruise ship outside. So when 25 years went by and my wife was managing me and I actually had extra money that I wouldn't get screwed out of, we decided that we would go look for something within a couple hours of Texas because you go more often. You got to go to Hawaii. You waste 1 day getting there and 1 day coming home and probably half a day recovering. And it's really expensive. And I always thought, when I retire somewhere, I don't want to have another job to pay the light bill and buy eggs at the store. So anyway, when we went to Belize, we got a little island, Ambergris Key, and the fact that it's fairly primitive, sand streets, roads, and they don't have a big infrastructure. You couldn't have a hotel like this there. It couldn't support it. They're trying to do that's the worst thing, these timeshare condos that ever hit the world. That and cruise ships, I think, are the 2 most disastrous things. They leave a bad trail and people don't really get a feel of anything besides eating heavy foods and buying Jimmy Buffett paraphernalia at that t-shirt shop. Well, they're going to be there. I guess you might make money off them, but somebody ought to make them do the right thing. They're kind of detrimental to wherever they go anyway. They don't do any of that in Belize. We got a reef in front. You can't get in with your cruise ship. We got a little island that's kind of limited by how much it can be developed, and they're very charming people who actually know what they have. They wouldn't want it to be like this because they would be the ones pushed out.
One of the albums we give a lot of play to on our show is Cowboy Boots and Bathing Suits. And that was recorded in Belize.
Yeah, about 90% of it was, yeah.
90% of it.
I think I did one when I got back home, but we did some at Fido's and some at my house. In fact, I thought his dad's song, I called it the Fred Med, where I did a little bit of rain and everybody's talking and all that. Did that right in the living room.
And if I remember, the end of the song, Come Along to Belize with Me.
Come away to Belize.
Come away to Belize with me. You hear the people applauding. Was that a live track?
Yeah.
The whole album was live, wasn't it?
No, well, there was about 5 tracks that we cut that afternoon at Fido's. We did that one, and Barefootin', and we did Champagne Don't Hurt Me, Baby, Cocaine Don't Drive Me. We did that one, and then we did Wanted for Love, and we did about 5 of them that way. And then I went down to my house. I've done that before. I kind of wanted one where I didn't have to really appease the crowd. I just wanted to get lost in the moment. We cut The Moon Is Still Over His Shoulder. We cut Everybody's Talking. We cut cut a few more precious feeling ones there. And then I went down to the dining room of the Victoria House and I cut the song Cowboy Boots and Bathing Suits.
The song
That didn't have a name. That was the title I wanted for the album, so I gave it to that song. As you're getting out the cowboy boots, packing up your bathing suits, I thought I wanted the album to denote that it was still our band playing music, that we weren't completely island. So on the next album, it may be more island. I may use steel drum, not steel drum, but timbales, shakers, congas, and get more of that rhythmic feel.
The one song you mentioned, The Moon Is Still Over Her Shoulder, that's probably my favorite cut from the album. That was written by Hugh Presswood, wasn't it?
It had been cut by Michael Johnson, singer-songwriter from Minneapolis area, who was living in Nashville. And when I first heard it, I thought, that song is fantastic. And it's one of those Jerry Jeff Kiss of Death. As soon as I said that, I never heard it again on the radio. And so I went kind of looking for it, and I ran into another songwriter, Whitey Schaefer, who wrote probably all George Strait's hits. Exes Live in Texas, and a bunch of stuff. Anyway, I told Whitey, I said, I heard this song, Moon Still Over Her Shoulder. He says, and the moon is still over her shoulder. He said, what a great line. And I said, yeah, I'd never hear it. And he said, yeah, Hugh Presswood wrote that. So I actually called his office and sent me a copy of his demo, and that's sort of what I based it on.
Have you met Mr. Presswood?
No, I have not.
Never met him?
Have you?
No, we've corresponded. I like his songwriting.
That's the only one I know. I mean, I just kind of find a song, and if I like it, I like it, and I don't care who's writing it. And I was a big fan of Paul Williams because he wrote that Rainbow Connection for the Muppets. I thought it was a great song.
I thought the Muppets did a number of good songs, to be honest.
He wrote a lot of those. In fact, he's very proud of those now. Rainbow Connection is a great song. That's where he's kind of sitting on the log singing at the beginning of the movie.
What other songwriters would you have to give a tip to the hat to?
Guy Clark. Rodney Crowell. Of course, Fred Neal, of course. And I'm starting to hear him on XM Radio, and I'm proud of that. You ought to play him on your Caribbean stuff. Freddie has a lot of great island and Caribbean stuff. Of course, everybody's talking with the song about being in a hotel somewhere else, wanting to go where the wind is. Every time I feel the northeast wind from my house down in Belize, I always think of Freddie. That's the prevailing wind, which we don't have today, do we? We don't know where it is. But occasionally, it's trying to get here. They said there's a storm out there, a pressure system, and a wind trying to come down through Florida to clean this out. But whether it makes it, we don't know.
And you were mentioning the possibility of doing another album that may have that island sound with
Yeah.
the timbales. And you said you may call it Passport.
That was, my wife said, let me keep your old Passport. That does feel like a good album. Passport means I can go anywhere.
Right.
And it's a pretty good theme, because I've got some songs that actually don't have anything to do with island stuff. I wrote a wedding song for my wife. I wrote a song for my son and I, who both do the same thing. It's like father, like son, that everybody likes. And I've had it around for a couple of years. I wrote it with Django, and we've only played it twice, but we played it once on the Diane Imus show, and his phone's lit up. Where can we get it? So we better record it at some point. I just have not felt like sitting for a week and recording a dozen songs. I don't even know if it's going to be records
Right.
or CDs. I mean, with all this streaming now, and I might just sell them from my website. I mean, we're that close. Screw it. Get rid of the jewel boxes. Get rid of that shit you always lose when you open it. The thing comes apart.
The jewel cases always crack.
Well, they're terrible, and we tried to get rid of them by going to what's called the Digipack, and then I thought, well, maybe they're just going to go away. Tower Records is closed.
You were mentioning your wife, and she's planning, or she has some plans she'd like to open a school for musicians.
Music school. Yeah, based on LIPA, the school my son went to in Liverpool. It's a 1 or 2 years music school where you go and learn basically at a younger age, 17 to 22, somewhere in there, about the music business, and kind of learning about keeping your copyrights, and then maybe learning to do a little bit of Pro Tools and work in the studio, and just be in an environment where you can write and play, and be in Austin where there's a lot of music around. You can go see at night and then come back in the daytime and just learn about the business before you just step out there and get knocked around like we all did.
More like to learn about the business side.
Well, sneak it in on them. You tell them you're going to teach a business side, nobody will go.
Oh, yeah.
Come play guitar and meet some other guitar players, and while you're there, we'll sneak it in on you. And then not heavy, just enough that you can find out what copyright publishing does, how you can do it, basically how to read a contract, and make some demos, make tapes, and play with some other fellow musicians, and be in a music town.
As a Texan, what do you think about the idea of Kinky Friedman being a governor?
Well, I think it'd be good because Kinky's smart and he's a good guy, and I think he'd be a good ambassador for Texas. In Texas, the governor doesn't have much power. He can appoint people to certain positions, head of the Parks and Wildlife or something like that, but he doesn't do anything legislatively. The lieutenant governor really leads the Senate, sort of like the vice president does in there. They did it that way because after the Civil War, during Reconstruction, the United States government made a governor in Texas, and he basically was part of a shenanigans deal to take land away from people who owned it, carpetbaggers. And so when Texas got rid of him, and got rid of both the first governor, said, let's give him no power, so that'll never happen again. So basically, Kinky would be perfect for that. I mean, he'd be a goodwill ambassador, he'd make comments, social comments, and maybe send Texas in a direction of alternative fuels, which he's talked about, and things like that. I don't know. It's an uphill battle. Texas is pretty conservative, except for Austin. We're the faint blue spot in the middle of a dark Red Sea.
And as we mentioned earlier, this interview is taking place in Key West, and we're overlooking the water.
Was it November 2nd or 3rd?
November 2nd, yeah. And there's pelicans flying around. It's very beautiful. But speaking of Key West, you were the one that brought Jimmy Buffett here.
He'd mentioned he'd like to come down. I told him, I was living in Coconut Grove. I was living right around the corner from Freddie and Justin when he was little. And I said, if you're ever down this way, come. He came to play some little club in the Grove, and the guy basically told Jimmy that he booked him another time, basically put his gigs. So Jimmy was here, didn't have anything to do, and when he got out of the house, I said, hey, we've been thinking about going to Key West, so I always wanted to go. Let's go. We put a bunch of shit in our car and tied my bike on the roof and took off in my 49 Packard. In fact, there's a picture of it in one of the books. Or Jimmy knew how to use it. Was he sitting on a Packard or something?
Yeah, in front of the Packard, yeah. I think
That was my old Packard. We drove it down here and kind of hung around for a while. Then I was going in and out playing gigs, and Jimmy was going back to Nashville. I think he was married to Margie. What was his?
Margie.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Checker. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Anyway, he was trying to get that wrapped up and then go back and forth, and we'd see each other here. But yeah, basically, we got him down here. But I just happened to be driving the car. He'd eventually got here.
Think so?
Yeah. He was 150 miles away.
Yeah. What was it about Key West? I think in the book, in Jimmy's book, he mentions that you had been there before and you kind of knew this town.
Well, I'd also stopped in all the bars. As we stopped, he said, I seemed to know every bartender and every... Well, once you left the mainland Flores, you got into the Keys. If you got down to Key Largo, there was a little place to pull in. Some old sea captain had a bar, and we'd stop and have a beer with him and shoot the shit. And the place was all funkied up. And then we'd go on, we'd drive a little farther, and then we'd be to another key, and we'd stop, and then down to Big Pine, at the Big Pine Inn, and we stopped there. I think that's burned down. And then we come on in, and we stopped over at Stock Island, which is the funky little place north of here, and then finally on down into Key West. I'd been going back and forth a little bit. I'd actually lived on Summerlin Key the very first time I came down. The very first time I came down, I lived in Summerlin Key, where he's living now. And then I moved back to the Grove because it was handier to get to the airport for me to go out and play. I'd had a hit from Mr. Bojangles, and I was doing the singer-songwriter deal and all that. But I'd always heard from everybody else that you had to really see Key West. That was these great old sea captains' houses and everything else. Well, we got way the hell down here, stuck on the end of this island. There wasn't any music. I mean, Jimmy went and made his music in Nashville with Mike Utley and that, and put his little Parahhead band together, but we couldn't make anything here. There was nobody to pick with. There was nobody to jam with. I already had songs written, but I couldn't play them. I mean, I wanted to work them up and everything, and so I'd made albums. I'd made 5 albums already. And I'd done them in Memphis and done them in Nashville, but I wanted to get a band of comrades, friends who kind of knew some of the same styles I did. If you play a rock song, you play it rocky. If you play a country song, you play it country. They know immediately by the timbre of the song what's the right thing to play. So when I finally got down here, I said, I got to get out of here. And one year I got arrested 11 times. I figured that was... I had my whole Packard. They knew it was me every night. About every second night. And there's that little thing here. The judge's son is the lawyer, and you pay him $300. And the thing goes away. And then they came and told me, finally, that it was time for me to go find something on the mainland. That they were a little tired of my raucous ways. So actually, I got kicked out of here. But when a man's down, kick him. Give him an incentive to rise above it. Anyway, I flew out to Texas, sold my Packard, and went to Texas. That sounds like a song. Well, it was a low-pressure system like we have today, and it came in and it hung here for about 3 weeks. And I was antsy anyway, and they'd already talked to me about going, and I thought, shit, I got to get on with my music. And I knew my manager had signed with a record company 5 months ago. He said, find where you want to record. I said, I better get going. So I said, I'll stop in Austin. If it ain't there, I'll go on. I didn't want to go to California. But the Eagles were around, and I think they were scratching. There was Jackson Brown, that kind of stuff. I knew something was going on, and I had to figure out where I wanted to be. So anyway, I got on with it. What was the question? The Starbucks is kicking in finally.
Do you still, you kind of had a reputation anyways for being kind of a party animal?
Yeah.
Do you still get wild every now and then?
I don't know.
Don't know?
I was trying to think the last time I got wild. We did stay up at a casino in Lake Charles one night, kind of hitting the tables and running around, but that's the last time we really, then we're just drinking beer. And I hated myself. I have a few physical problems. I have to work out every day, swim, do yoga and stuff. So I pretty much work on that shit.
One of our listeners,
It's maintenance we're doing.
bodily maintenance.
Yeah, bodily maintenance. It's like having that old Chris Craft motorboat that was all wood that you have to varnish every 6 months and sand and repaint, but it looks good. That's me. I'm an old Chris Craft.
One of our listeners wanted to know about what was the influence behind his favorite Jerry Jeff song, and that was Getting By. It was his favorite Jerry Jeff song. He wanted to know the influence behind that.
There was no influence behind it.
None?
There wasn't even a song. All I had was the chorus. Getting by my stocking trade. I didn't even know what the hell it was about. And we got to Lukebach. We were going to work on the album, and I told the guys, I got this little melody. What is it? So Bob said, just wing a verse. So I said, hello in the truck. We had to make sure that the recording truck was working, because it was a live remote control recording. There weren't many remote vehicles at that period of time even. We were the first ones to take someplace like to a town that didn't even have the right electricity. We had to bring electricity in. And we plugged in the truck, and I wasn't sure it was going to all work. So I said, hello in the truck. It's the Scamp Walker time again. I'm just making it up as I go. And we got to the chorus. It was getting by with my stocking trade. Everybody was playing it. And so when it got time to turn on the machine, they said, yeah, it's working and we're recording well. Let's just take one. And I said, hi, Buckaroo. Scamp Walker time. I'm going to try and slide one by you once more. That was the first line. I was just making it up, basically, to get to the chorus. Which is funny. I heard a songwriter the other day said, how'd you get into songwriting? He said, well, I used to make up, everybody knew the chorus, but nobody could remember the verses. So, like 50s song, you could make up the verses. The songs were doo-woppy, doo-woppy. So you just make up verses to get to the chorus. That's basically what I was doing in Getting By. And I've been making them up ever since. I have to make them up every night. There is no verses. Now the guy knows.
Now he knows.
Usually that's kind of a good thing because it kind of puts me in the moment. We say hi, Buckaroos, and then here we are. Tonight it'll be something like that. Here we are in Key West again, trying to slide one by.
Out of all the songs you've written, which one would you say is your personal favorite?
No, there's some different ones for different reasons. Woman in Texas is a good song for my wife. I wrote a wedding song for my daughter and our son-in-law. I really like it a lot. I haven't recorded that yet. My Old Man was about one night in the life of a traveling musician, sort of. And Little Bird, still a favorite. I like Come Away to Belize because that was my first impressions of San Pedro. I wrote it on the end of my boat dock when it wasn't built yet. I had to climb out on these, they were just posts sticking out. And I worked my way out to the end. They had one board across the end to hold the two posts together. I sat on that board and started making up the song. And it still holds up. I mean, when I sing it, I think, oh yeah, I remember all this. And the long boat dock. The cowboy boots and bathing suits. Dude said that's a Jerry Jeff song I ever heard one.
You do an annual convention every year for your fans.
No, I don't do a convention. I do a party in Austin.
Party?
Yeah, for my birthday.
Oh yeah,
Birthday bash.
Yeah, I guess conventions sounds a little formal.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy's got a goddamn merchandising table in the hotel lobby. I mean, I got to take this shit home and write it down. Well, my fans buy a lot of shit anyway, so I don't really force it on them. They said this morning they were lined up out of the, you got a ballroom, they were lined up out of there buying sacks full of stuff. But, no, I just I come in and I do 3 shows in 3 days. Friday night's a bar in town. Saturday night is the sort of listening concert, and then Sunday I do an old dance hall. Take you back in time. And that's really about it, basically. So they just come in and stay at hotels that we sort of suggest. But nothing like this.
Is there anything out there that you've wanted to do or that you plan on doing in the future? I mean, you have all these albums to your credit.
No, I don't know.
Don't know.
I'm sort of limited by how good I feel. I wish I could have I wish I was on my way to St. Moritz with 100 hits of ecstasy. But I haven't been. I'm going to go to Belize and do some stuff, and I'd actually thought about getting a little catamaran and going and sailing around some of those islands down. There's about 1,000 islands between Ambergris Key and Roatan, and do some little seeing who's there and do a little investigating and have some fun, but I haven't been able to kind of get that organized yet. So those are some future daydreams. In fact, I started a song the other day about disappearing, but I didn't get very far. So I'll probably be doing the same stuff. Playing some shows, going to Belize.
What do you think of...
And swimming.
Women?
I swim a lot. I swim every day.
Oh, I think swimming.
Yeah,
I
swim a mile. No, swimming. No, women is dangerous.
That's the truth. Tell me about the song Railroad Lady.
Well, it was a little idea, making up an idea about we were on the final run of passenger service, and we got to make up an idea about a woman that might have been a party favor for a bank president or railroad president, and she was going to have to do something very demeaning now that her way of life is being taken away from her. We started making a lot of fun of it. We were saying she was cornered in a roundhouse by a smooth-talking switchman, sidetracked, as it were, derailed, and her life, and then she was going to have to give up this life because the beds were unsafe, the railroad beds. So, and we were doing all this tongue-in-cheek play on word stuff, and it turned out to be a pretty neat song. I don't know. It's similar to both Jimmy's and I's melodies, so I think we just started playing and singing. The Railroad Lady, who was she? The chorus was pretty simple, and then we just threw out verses and we went along. And basically, Jimmy wrote it down. I don't remember it.
Given that this show...
Well, I was making up shit all the time back then that I don't remember. But I was told.
Given that this show is broadcast all over the world, my final question to you is, what would you, Jerry Jeff Walker, like to say to the world?
To the world?
Well, I guess anyone that's listening.
Oh, get a life. Oh. I have more important things to do than listen to internet radio, but I think if it brings charms into your life, good. And, I don't know. Hang on. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I feel very good about it. Thank you very much.
All right. I hope I answered some of your stuff.
I appreciate it.
Hey, this is Jerry Jeff Walker. You're listening to Time After Island Time. That'd be funny. Have you introduced him that he plays a Fred Neil song?
Started me.